It's interesting to think about how the universe is dynamically functioning. Everything is changing. The cloud, sun, wind, ocean, or among the planets and the galaxies and even farther continuously. And out of the dynamic changes, somehow I was born, and you are, and all the living beings came to Earth. It's probably a stupid thing to talk about, but I want to say something about how we may be able to relate to that. If I call that as a principle of how the universe works, my sense is that we are alive and doing whatever we do, following the laws of the universe. Otherwise we couldn't exist to this point and further on. And as we live, whatever the age is, or even whatever the species we may be, human being, of course we are, but plants and animals and insect, amoebas, there's a fundamental principle or law that seems to be functioning. And if I summarize what that is, I see it as a process of exploration of life out of somewhere in the past, with whatever the conditions and elements fit together to create life, and we live struggling or exploring or feeling happy in whatever the situation we encounter until we die, and whatever happens afterward. Why am I thinking about it? It's because all the living beings go through the very, very similar, if not identical, process of life, following the law of the universe. And if I can picture or create a picture of how things happen in the living process, it's like you try this. If it doesn't work, then try other until it works, and keep on trying to explore the life, whether the living being is ants, insect, plant, animals, or human being. We go through the same process. In my case, or our case as human being, as we are now in this modern world, I think we can communicate with this language and the thought to capture what that process may be, which I'm trying to do now, I'm doing now. Essentially, what I realize is that from my early days up to now, and probably into the future while I live, I'll keep trying this and that and learn from the experience, whether it was good or bad, whether I feel happy, excited, have fun, or unhappy, frustrated, or sad, or disappointed. So in a way there's a positive drive to explore life while we find the path or the way as we make a decision into the future. And I see that happening in my thought process or in the brain, but I see the same thing happen in my body. Or as I said, the same thing may happen in other living beings. Try this, try that, learn the lesson, find some interesting insight, and keep on moving forward. Whatever the situation is, from the birth to death and while we are alive, and in my whole body and any parts of my body, the cells essentially are doing the same. For example, if I can think of heart or lung or any organ, you would receive certain stimuli and find a cause to respond to the stimuli to make sense out of it. And organically, somehow, as if all the parts of the body is working together, it tried to process food, adjust the blood pressure, the temperature of the body, whatever, or see things and to realize what that is, and then digest that or capture the point of that sight, or even if it's a brain function, capture the thought of it, of what we find, and then come up with certain action to move forward, make a decision and move forward. Whether I'm heart, lung, or small pieces of cells here or there, essentially they are doing the same thing. As much as I said, all the living being may do the same thing. So there's nothing fundamentally different except, if I may say so, the degree of complexity, the way we coordinate and be able to access, be able to process all those various functioning and information coming to us as the situation changes to come up with the best possible solution to live. And if we do that well, I feel, and my body says the same thing, the body feels lively and great. We may call such state as also happy in our being as we live. And if that's not the case, we may be struggling, figuring out, solve the problem, what happened and how we may be able to learn from it or change the course of action. Again, we do this in thinking, but also for all the functioning of our sensory mechanism and all the organs and the cells in our body, processing the information to digest and make the best possible judgment. And obviously, we want to do the best of what we can in that whole process. And that's a big challenge, an interesting challenge. But the way I see it is that we are here to do just that. Internally processing, interfacing with others, the nature, human, the news from the TV or internet, the books, and somehow we process that in our existence to come up with certain decision to make a movement into the future. And as I said, even the degree of the process may be different, the process seems to be all functioning in the living beings. So the next question is, so what does it mean? Up to now, I'm just characterizing the process of life as a way of exploration, learning, finding the insight, and to make a move into the future that we think is appropriate. As we live, we do this continuously. So the whole question about it is that how much can we be aware of this process and make the right choice, decision. And we want our body to make the right choice too, obviously. And how can we be aware of how the choices made make sense or not, and then adjust whatever makes sense to move forward. We do this unconsciously in our body. Even the dream that we may have in the night may be a part of such a process. And then in our thinking, we try this, that, experiment or simulate the outcome, and then decide according to what we think makes sense. And if we find that the outcome is not satisfactory, we learn the lesson, hopefully, so that we don't repeat the same bad mistake. So maybe perhaps I should stop here, because the point in this talk is to look at the whole process, the dynamic process of how we live, and how all the elements of who we are, from the body to the emotion to the thinking and whatever happens, are all related to that, to make the most of what we can. And we do it individually and as a group, effectively, hopefully, with mistakes and so forth, miscommunication and bad decisions and fighting each other until we hopefully learn something good about it in an intelligent, smart, and maybe compassionate manner. And if we can do that, I think we may get the point that we feel happy, keep hoping that all beings can be happy as we express what we can do with what we have. I think that's a very interesting, positive way to look at life. I didn't go into the thought process and what we think or how we make decisions, whatever. But if we understand the whole process of life with what I said, it's almost like our thinking and struggle or whatever and happiness can be understood in a different dimension or different perspective, to realize how interesting, important, or minusculely or small stuff that we be bothered of all the scale of things that we can do, possibly. And at this age, I just passed 70 years old. And as my time become less to be on the earth, I feel somewhat resolved and empowered to see me a process of this whole, how the universe functions. And I feel at ease, and will be feeling great if I can connect to such principle and find a path. I think it's an interesting way of spending our time. Thank you.